One mistaken hug on a rainy train platform united a poor artist and a billionaire in a twist so unexpected it left both their lives changed forever. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. The rain fell in sheets across the city, transforming the evening into a blur of neon reflections and foggy streetlights. Mia Bennett hunched beneath her threadbare umbrella, clutching her portfolio case against her chest to shield her precious artwork from the downpour. The train platform at Grand Central Station was crowded with commuters, all desperate to escape the deluge that had persisted for 3 straight days. Mia checked her watch again, 7:42 p.m. If she missed this train, she'd have to wait another hour, and she couldn't afford a taxi back to her small apartment in the outskirts. 5 years in New York City, and Mia was still struggling to make ends meet. At 32, she had once imagined herself as an established artist by now, not someone who painted commissioned portraits for wealthy clients during the day and waited tables at night. Tonight had been particularly crushing. The gallery owner she'd hoped would finally give her a chance had barely glanced at her portfolio before dismissing her work as derivative and lacking commercial appeal. Train 4728 to Westchester, now boarding on Platform 6, announced the metallic voice over the speakers. Mia hurried forward with the surge of people, her worn sneakers slipping slightly on the wet platform. She balanced her portfolio in one hand, umbrella in the other, as bodies pressed around her from all sides. The mass of humanity moved as one entity toward the train doors, and Mia felt herself being carried along with the tide. Through the crowd, she spotted a tall figure standing apart from the others, a man in an expensive charcoal suit, his back to her as he spoke urgently into his phone. There was something oddly familiar about the set of his shoulders, the way his dark hair curled slightly at the nape of his neck. "Yes, I'm boarding now," he was saying, his voice carrying a note of irritation. "The merger documents are ready. They won't back out. I've made sure of it." Mia's heart stuttered as recognition dawned. Could it be? After all these years? The crowd jostled her forward, bringing her closer to the man. She squinted through the rain, trying to get a better look at his profile. "Alex?" The name escaped her lips before she could stop herself, barely audible above the din of the station. The man turned slightly, and Mia caught a glimpse of his face, the sharp jawline, the intense dark eyes. It was him, Alexander Reed, her first love, the boy who had broken her heart 15 years ago when he left their small Midwestern town without a word, vanishing from her life as if he'd never existed. Now here he was, transformed into a polished businessman, as out of place in her current world as a diamond in coal. Before she could process this shocking reunion, the crowd surged again. A businessman with a massive suitcase knocked into Mia from behind, sending her stumbling forward. Her umbrella went flying, her portfolio case slipped from her fingers, and she collided directly with Alex's back. Acting on pure instinct, she reached out to steady herself, her arms encircling his waist in what looked to anyone watching like an intimate embrace. She felt him stiffen beneath her touch, his conversation halting mid-sentence. "What the—" Alex turned, his expression morphing from annoyance to shock as he found himself face to face with a woman he didn't seem to recognize. Mia immediately released him, her face burning with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry I was pushed. I didn't mean to—" "Elise?" Alex said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Is that you?" Mia blinked in confusion. "No, My God, Elise, what happened to you?" Alex's eyes roamed over her bedraggled appearance, the faded jeans, the paint-stained jacket, the dripping hair now uncovered since she'd lost her umbrella. Before Mia could correct his mistake, another voice called out from behind them. "Mr. Reed, I've been looking everywhere for you." A harried-looking young man in a suit nearly identical to Alex's pushed through the crowd, clutching a leather briefcase. "The car is waiting, sir. We need to get to the meeting. The Tanaka representatives won't wait." Alex barely glanced at his assistant, his attention fixed on Mia. "Not now, Peterson." "But sir, the Japanese delegation—" "I said not now." The sharpness in Alex's voice made the assistant flinch. "Call them and tell them I've been delayed. Family emergency." Family emergency? Mia opened her mouth to protest, to correct the misunderstanding, but Alex was already bending down to retrieve her fallen portfolio. He flipped it open, and his eyes widened as he caught sight of the paintings inside. "You're still creating," he murmured, almost to himself. The train doors began to close. Commuters pushed past them, but Alex remained rooted to the spot, still staring at Mia with an expression she couldn't decipher. His assistant hovered anxiously nearby. "Sir, at least let me call the car to take you both wherever you need to go," the young man pleaded. Alex nodded absently, still not taking his eyes off Mia. "Do that, Peterson." Then, turning to Mia, he said in a softer voice, "We need to talk, Elise. I thought you were dead." Dead? Mia's confusion deepened. Who was this Elise, and why did Alex believe she was her? Before she could formulate a response, Alex had taken her elbow, guiding her away from the platform towards the main concourse of the station. "Alex, listen, I'm not—" Mia began. "Not here," he interrupted, his voice low and urgent. "There are too many eyes, too many ears. Wait until we're somewhere private." The intensity in his gaze silenced her protests. There was something in those dark eyes. Fear? Relief? She couldn't tell, but it sent a chill down her spine despite the warmth of his hand on her arm. Outside, a sleek black town car idled at the curb. Peterson opened the door, and Alex ushered Mia inside before sliding in beside her. The leather seats were buttery soft, the interior smelling of expensive cologne and new car. It was a world away from the crowded subway cars she usually rode in. "The penthouse," Alex instructed the driver before raising the privacy partition. When they were finally alone, Mia found her voice again. "Alex, I need to tell you something. I'm not—" "Shh." He placed a finger gently against her lips, the gesture so unexpected it rendered her speechless. "Not yet. The car might be bugged. Just play along until we're safe." Bugged? Safe? What kind of world did Alex live in now, where cars were bugged and safety was a concern? The Alexander Reed she had known had been a bright, ambitious boy with dreams of becoming an architect, not this paranoid businessman who spoke of danger in hushed tones. The car glided through the rain-slicked streets of Manhattan, the city lights blurring into streaks of color outside the tinted windows. Mia sat rigidly beside Alex, acutely aware of her damp clothes probably ruining the expensive upholstery. Her portfolio rested on her lap, a tangible reminder of the life she'd built, so different from whatever Alex now thought she was part of. After what seemed like an eternity, the car pulled into the underground garage of one of the most exclusive buildings in the city, the Obsidian, a towering spire of glass and steel that housed some of the wealthiest individuals in New York. The driver opened the door, and Alex guided Mia towards a private elevator, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. "Mr. Reed, welcome back." The security guard nodded respectfully as they passed. The elevator required a key card and fingerprint to operate. Alex supplied both, and the doors closed silently, whisking them upward. Mia watched the floor numbers climb, 10, 20, 30, 40, until they finally stopped at the top. Penthouse. The doors opened directly into a vast living space with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the rain-drenched city below. The apartment was minimalist in design, all clean lines, neutral tones, and subtle lighting that highlighted carefully selected pieces of modern art adorning the walls. "Can I get you something to drink?" Alex asked, moving towards a well-stocked bar in one corner. "You look like you could use it." "Alex," Mia said firmly, setting her portfolio down and stepping away from him. "We need to clear something up. I'm not Elise. My name is Mia Bennett. We knew each other a long time ago in Oak Ridge. I think you've confused me with someone else." Alex froze, a crystal tumbler halfway to a bottle of amber liquid. He turned slowly, his expression unreadable. "Mia? From Oak Ridge High?" She nodded, relieved that he remembered. "Yes, we were friends." "Friends," he repeated, setting the glass down with a soft clink. A shadow crossed his face, quickly replaced by a polite mask. "Of course, Mia Bennett. I apologize for the confusion." The transformation was jarring. Gone was the intensity, the urgency that had characterized his behavior since their encounter. In its place was a cool detachment that made Mia feel like a stranger. "You look remarkably like someone I used to know," he continued, his voice now smooth and controlled. "The resemblance is uncanny." "Who's Elise?" Mia asked, unable to contain her curiosity. Alex's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Someone from another life." He poured himself a drink, not offering her one again. "So, Mia Bennett from Oak Ridge. What brings you to New York?" The abrupt change of subject wasn't lost on Mia, but she decided not to push. "I'm an artist, or trying to be anyway." Alex's eyes flicked to her portfolio. "May I?" She nodded, and he crossed the room to where she'd placed it, opening it with a care that surprised her. He examined each painting meticulously, his expression softening as he took in her work. Portraits mainly, capturing the essence of her subjects with bold strokes and vibrant colors. "These are exceptional," he said finally, looking up at her with what appeared to be genuine admiration. "You've developed a unique style. There's an honesty in your brushwork, a vulnerability that's quite compelling." Coming from anyone else, Mia might have dismissed the praise as empty flattery. But Alex had always had an eye for art, even as a teenager. His assessment carried weight. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Unfortunately, gallery owners don't seem to share your opinion." "Their loss," Alex replied, closing the portfolio carefully. He studied her for a moment, his gaze calculating. "When did you move to New York?" 5 years ago, Mia answered, suddenly self-conscious under his scrutiny. She was acutely aware of her damp clothes, her messy hair, the smudge of paint she'd never quite managed to scrub off her left wrist. Standing in this immaculate penthouse, she felt like an intruder from another world. "And you've been trying to break into the art scene all this time?" There was something in his tone, not quite pity, but close enough to make her bristle. "I've been making a living," she said defensively. "I paint commissioned portraits. I teach art classes sometimes. She stopped herself before mentioning the waitressing job. Some pride, at least, she could maintain. Alex nodded, taking a sip of his drink. "It's a brutal industry. Talent isn't always enough." "No," Mia agreed. "Connections matter more. And I don't have those." A moment of silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken words and the ghost of their shared past. The rain continued to patter against the windows, a soothing backdrop to the tension in the room. "Well," Alex said finally, setting his empty glass down, "perhaps I can help with that." Mia stared at Alex, uncertain if she had heard him correctly. "You want to help me? Why?" Alex moved back toward the bar, refilling his glass. His posture was relaxed, but Mia sensed a tension in him that hadn't been there in the boy she'd known. "Consider it making amends for the rather awkward way I dragged you here." "That's generous," Mia said carefully, "but I don't need charity." A flicker of amusement crossed Alex's face. "Charity? No, Mia. I'm talking about an investment. I have connections in the art world that could be useful to you, and in return—" He paused, seeming to consider his next words carefully. "I'd like to commission a series of paintings." Mia raised an eyebrow. "What kind of paintings?" "Portraits," Alex replied. "Of me." The request seemed innocent enough, but something in his tone made Mia hesitate. "I don't understand. Why would you need multiple portraits?" Alex set his glass down and walked to the window, his back to her as he gazed out at the rain-soaked city. "I have homes in several cities. New York, London, Tokyo, Dubai. Each one could use an original piece. The casual way he listed his properties, as if owning homes across the globe was the most natural thing in the world, drove home just how far apart their lives had diverged since Oak Ridge. "And the connections you mentioned?" Mia asked. Alex turned back to face her. "I'm on the board of the Whitney Museum. I know gallery owners, collectors, critics. One word from me, and doors will open for you." Mia's heart raced at the possibilities. After years of rejection, the thought of finally having her work seen by the right people was intoxicating. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something Alex wasn't telling her. "What's the catch?" she asked bluntly. A slow smile spread across Alex's face, transforming his features from merely handsome to devastating. It was the same smile that had made her heart skip beats in high school, now refined by years of practice and power. "Perceptive as ever, Mia," he said. "There is a small condition. While you're working on the portraits, I'd like you to pretend to be Elise in certain public situations." Mia blinked, trying to process this unexpected twist. "You want me to impersonate someone? Who exactly is this woman, and why do you need me to pretend to be her?" Alex's expression hardened slightly. "Elise Montclair was my fiancée. She disappeared 2 years ago under circumstances that raised many questions. Questions I'd prefer not to keep answering." "Was she found?" Mia asked, a knot forming in her stomach. "You said you thought I was dead." "Officially, she's still missing," Alex replied, his voice carefully neutral. "The police investigation is ongoing, but there have been no leads for months." Mia took a step back, suddenly wary. "And you want me to pretend to be your missing, possibly dead fiancé? That's insane, Alex. It's probably illegal." "Not exactly," Alex clarified quickly. "I'm not asking you to assume her identity in any legal sense, just to accompany me to a few social events where people might mistake you for her. You wouldn't need to speak much, just be seen." "Why?" Mia demanded. "What purpose would that serve?" Alex hesitated, then sighed. "There are those who believe I had something to do with Elise's disappearance. Business rivals, mostly, who'd like nothing more than to see me distracted by scandal, or better yet, criminal charges. If Elise were to suddenly return, having been away of her own volition, those rumors would be put to rest." Mia stared at him, trying to reconcile the boy she'd once known with this man who could calmly propose such a deception. "Did you?" she asked quietly. "Have something to do with her disappearance?" For a moment, raw pain flashed across Alex's face, so genuine that Mia immediately regretted her question. "No," he answered, his voice low and fierce. "I loved her. I still do. I would never harm her." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken thoughts. Rain lashed against the windows, the storm outside intensifying to match the turbulence Mia felt within. "I should go," she said finally, reaching for her portfolio. "Wait." Alex moved toward her, stopping just short of touching her. "Just think about it. I'm offering you a legitimate opportunity, Mia. The commission alone would be worth more than you'd make in a year of waiting tables." Mia's head snapped up. "How did you—" "The paint stains on your hands, but the slight calluses that come from carrying trays," Alex explained. "I notice details. It's part of what's made me successful." Mia felt exposed, as if he could see through all her struggles, all her failures. It was humiliating, yet strangely intimate. "Even if I were to consider this bizarre arrangement," she said, "I don't look that much like her. People who knew her would realize I'm not Elise." "You'd be surprised," Alex replied. "The human mind sees what it expects to see. With the right clothes, the right hairstyle, the resemblance is already uncanny. It would be enough to plant the seed of doubt." Mia shook her head, overwhelmed. "I need to think. This is all too much." "Of course," Alex said, his tone softening. "Take all the time you need." He pulled out a sleek business card and handed it to her. "My private number. Call me when you've decided." Mia took the card, noticing the embossed logo of Reed Enterprises. "I should really get home now." "I'll have my driver take you," Alex offered, already reaching for his phone. "No," Mia said firmly. "I prefer the subway." It was a lie. She hated the subway at this hour, but she needed distance, needed to process everything without the lingering influence of Alex's presence. He looked like he wanted to argue, but instead nodded. "At least let me call you a taxi. The rain is getting worse." This much, Mia accepted. 10 minutes later, she was sitting in the back of a cab, watching the obsidian recede in the distance, Alex's business card burning a hole in her pocket. The rain had indeed intensified, turning the city streets into gleaming rivers that reflected the neon lights overhead. Mia leaned her head against the cool window, trying to make sense of the evening's bizarre turn of events. Her mind kept returning to the way Alex had looked at her when he thought she was Elise, that raw emotion, so at odds with the controlled businessman who'd emerged once he realized his mistake. Who was Elise Montclair, and what had really happened to her? And why had Alex seemed so afraid in those first moments at the train station? When the taxi pulled up outside her apartment building in Queens, Mia paid the driver and dashed through the rain to the entrance. The elevator was out of service again, so she trudged up 4 flights of stairs to her small one-bedroom apartment. The contrast between her modest home and Alex's luxurious penthouse couldn't have been more stark. Mia's apartment was tiny but filled with character. Paintings covered nearly every wall, some her own work, others trades with fellow artists. Mismatched furniture rescued from thrift stores and street corners had been lovingly restored. It wasn't much, but it was hers, earned through years of hard work and persistence. She set her portfolio down and peeled off her damp clothes, changing into dry sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt. As she made herself a cup of tea, her phone pinged with a message from her roommate, Jade. "Covering double shift. Don't wait up. BTW rent due tomorrow. You got your half?" Mia winced. With the rejection from the gallery, she'd been counting on her next waitressing paycheck to cover rent, but that was still 3 days away. She'd have to ask for an advance, which meant enduring her manager's disapproving sighs and veiled threats about her job security. Unless, almost against her will, Mia found herself taking out Alex's business card. The embossed lettering caught the light. "Alexander Reed, CEO, Reed Enterprises." Below it, a phone number, not the company's main line but his personal contact, he'd said. She set it down on the counter, trying to push away the temptation. What Alex was proposing wasn't just unusual, it was potentially dangerous. Impersonating a missing woman, even informally, could have serious consequences. And yet, Mia walked to her easel where her latest work in progress stood. A commissioned portrait of a banker's wife, a woman with cold eyes and a colder smile who had already sent back the preliminary sketch twice with petty criticisms. The work was technically proficient but soulless, the kind of art Mia had never wanted to create. How long could she keep doing this? Painting portraits she hated for people she couldn't stand, working nights at a restaurant where customers treated her like she was invisible, scraping by month after month with nothing to show for it but calloused hands and dwindling dreams. Her gaze drifted back to the business card. A legitimate commission from someone like Alexander Reed would be worth thousands, enough to pay her rent for months, maybe even a year. And the connections he offered could be the break she'd been waiting for. But at what cost? Mia's phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Did you get home safely?" Alex's voice was smooth, controlled, yet with an undercurrent of something she couldn't quite place. "How did you get my number?" Mia asked, ignoring his question. "The taxi company," Alex replied, unapologetic. "I wanted to make sure you arrived without incident." Mia should have been annoyed at the invasion of privacy, but found herself oddly touched by his concern. "I'm fine. Thank you for checking." A brief silence followed, Then Alex spoke again. "I realize my proposal earlier might have seemed unorthodox. I want to assure you that everything would be above board. A formal contract for the commission, generous compensation, and no expectation for you to do anything that makes you uncomfortable." "Why me, Alex?" Mia asked softly. "There must be professional actresses who could play this role more convincingly." "An actress would be recognized," Alex answered. "You're unknown in my circles. And—" He paused. "There's a genuineness to you, Mia, something that can't be faked. That's what I need." Mia closed her eyes, torn between suspicion and the desire to believe him. "I need time to think about it." "Of course," Alex said, "but I should mention that I'm hosting a charity gala at the Met next weekend. It would be the perfect opportunity to make your first appearance as Elise, if you're interested." A charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The kind of event where Mia would normally be serving champagne, not attending as a guest. The kind of event where she might meet gallery owners, collectors, people who could change the trajectory of her career with a single word. "I'll think about it," she repeated more firmly this time. "That's all I ask," Alex said. "Good night, Mia." After he hung up, Mia stood in her small kitchen, feeling as if she were standing at a crossroads. One path led back to the life she knew, the struggle, the rejection, the slow death of her artistic dreams. The other path, the one Alex offered, led somewhere unknown, potentially dangerous, but glittering with possibility. Her phone pinged again, another message from Jade. "Seriously, rent?" Mia picked up Alex's business card, ran her thumb over the embossed lettering, and made her decision. The next morning, Mia woke before her alarm, her mind already racing with thoughts of Alex's proposal. Sunlight streamed through her thin curtains, the storm having passed in the night, leaving behind a crisp, clear day that felt like a clean slate. Before she could second-guess herself, she reached for her phone and dialed the number on Alex's business card. He answered on the second ring. "Mia." The way he said her name, not a question, but a statement of certainty, made her wonder if he'd been waiting for her call. "I'll do it," she said, without preamble. "The commission and the other arrangement. But I have conditions." "I expected nothing less," Alex replied, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Name them." "First, I want a formal contract for the artwork, separate from any agreement about me appearing as Elise. Second, I need half the commission fee up front." Mia paused, gathering her courage. "And third, I want to know more about Elise. If I'm going to pretend to be her, even briefly, I need to understand who she was." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. "The first two conditions are easily met," Alex said finally. "The third is more complicated, but I understand your reasoning. Can you come to my office today? We can finalize the details and begin preparations for the gala." 3 hours later, Mia found herself stepping out of an elevator into the headquarters of Reed Enterprises, located in a sleek skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan. The reception area was a study in understated luxury: polished marble floors, walls of smoked glass, and a massive desk behind which sat an immaculately groomed receptionist. "Ms. Bennett," the woman greeted her with a practiced smile. "Mr. Reed is expecting you. Please follow me." Mia was acutely aware of her appearance as she walked through the pristine office. She'd worn her best outfit, a simple black dress that she'd bought secondhand and tailored herself, but it felt woefully inadequate in these surroundings. Employees in designer suits glanced at her curiously as she passed, and she fought the urge to shrink under their scrutiny. The receptionist led her to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a spectacular view of the city. Alex stood as she entered, dismissing the receptionist with a nod. "Mia, thank you for coming." He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. "Please sit." Alex looked every inch the powerful CEO in his tailored suit, his dark hair perfectly styled. Yet there was a tension in his shoulders, a wariness in his eyes that hadn't been there the night before. "I've had the contracts drawn up," he said, sliding 2 folders across the desk. "One for the commission, one for our arrangement. Take your time reviewing them." Mia opened the first folder and her breath caught. The commission fee was more than she made in 2 years. "This is very generous," she managed. "It reflects the value of your work," Alex replied simply, "and your discretion." The second contract was more unusual, a confidentiality agreement that outlined her role in appearing as Elise at selected social events, along with a substantial consulting fee for each appearance. The language was carefully crafted to avoid any explicit mention of impersonation or deception. "Everything appears to be in order," Mia said after reviewing both documents. "But before I sign, I'd like to know more about Elise, as I mentioned on the phone." Alex's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He pressed an intercom button on his desk. "Peterson, bring in the Montclair file." His assistant appeared moments later with a thick folder, which he placed on the desk before quietly withdrawing. Alex opened it and removed a photograph, sliding it across to Mia. Mia's hand trembled slightly as she picked up the image. The resemblance was indeed striking. Elise Montclair had the same heart-shaped face, the same wide-set eyes, though hers were a deeper blue compared to Mia's hazel. Her hair was more polished, an expensive cut styled in loose waves rather than Mia's simple shoulder-length style. But the basic structure of their features was remarkably similar. "She's beautiful," Mia said quietly. "Yes," Alex agreed, his voice softening. Elise was the daughter of French diplomat Jean-Pierre Montclair. We met at a charity function in Paris 3 years ago. She was working for an international humanitarian organization at the time. She always had a passion for social causes. "How did she disappear?" Mia asked, still studying the photograph. Alex's expression darkened. "We were supposed to meet for dinner in London. I was there for business. She'd been visiting friends in the countryside. She never arrived at the restaurant. Her car was found abandoned near Hyde Park, but there were no signs of struggle, no evidence of foul play." "What do the police think happened?" "Officially, it's an ongoing missing persons case," Alex replied. "Unofficially, there are theories ranging from voluntary disappearance to—" He trailed off, unwilling to voice the darker possibilities. "And what do you think happened?" Mia pressed. Alex met her gaze directly, his dark eyes intense. "I think someone took her. Someone who wanted to hurt me by taking the person I loved most." A chill ran through Mia. "Why would anyone do that?" "I've made enemies, Mia. It's an inevitable consequence of success in my world. Not everyone appreciates my methods." There was a hardness to his voice now, a glimpse of the ruthlessness that had likely contributed to his rise to power. Mia set the photograph down, feeling suddenly out of her depth. "And you think my appearing as Elise will somehow help? If people believe she's returned voluntarily, the investigation will shift focus. It might draw out whoever is responsible." Alex leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I just want to find the truth, Mia, and maybe in doing so I can clear my name from the whispers that have been circulating." Mia wasn't entirely convinced, but she found herself nodding nonetheless. She picked up the pen and signed both contracts, sealing her fate with a sweep of blue ink. Alex's shoulders relaxed visibly as she pushed the documents back across the desk. "Thank you," he said, with what seemed like genuine gratitude. "Now, we have a lot to do before the gala." What followed was a whirlwind of preparation that left Mia breathless. Alex immediately transferred the advance to her bank account, the notification making her momentarily dizzy with relief, before introducing her to a team of people who would facilitate her transformation into Elise. First came Vivian, a stern-faced Frenchwoman who was apparently one of the city's most exclusive stylists. She circled Mia like a hawk, making notes and occasionally tugging at her hair or clothing with a dissatisfied expression. Z resemblance is there, but Z presentation. She clicked her tongue disapprovingly. "We have much work to do, Mr. Reed." Next was Marcus, a soft-spoken man responsible for coaching Mia on Elise's mannerisms and speech patterns. Elise had a slight French accent, nothing too pronounced, he explained, and she moved with exceptional grace. Ballet training in her youth, small details, but crucial for authenticity. By late afternoon, Mia's head was swimming with information about Elise, her preferences, her habits, her history. She learned that Elise preferred champagne to wine, spoke 4 languages fluently, and always wore a specific perfume, Chanson d'été, a rare fragrance created by a small perfumery in Grasse. "This is impossible," Mia finally said, collapsing into a chair in Alex's office where they'd reconvened. "I can't possibly learn all this by Saturday." "You don't need to become her," Alex reassured her. "Just channel enough of her essence to plant doubt. Remember, most people at the gala only met Elise briefly, if at all. The physical resemblance will do most of the work." Mia nodded, though she remained unconvinced. "What about people who knew her well? Friends? Family?" "Her father is in diplomatic isolation in a remote part of Africa. Her closest friends are abroad. The only person you need to worry about is my sister, Charlotte, who will be at the gala. But I've spoken with her. She understands the situation and will support our narrative." Mia raised an eyebrow. "Your sister knows about this deception?" "Charlotte knows that I've hired a look-alike to help draw out whoever was responsible for Elise's disappearance," Alex clarified. "She doesn't have all the details, but she trusts my judgment." Before Mia could respond, Peterson appeared at the door. "Sir, the car is ready to take Ms. Bennett to her fitting." The rest of the week passed in a blur of preparations. Mia moved through fittings for a couture gown, sessions with a hairstylist who transformed her simple cut into Elise's signature waves, and tutorials on everything from which fork to use at dinner to how to air-kiss socialites without actually making contact. Through it all, Alex remained a constant presence, observing, directing, occasionally stepping in to correct a detail about Elise that others had missed. His attention was both unnerving and oddly thrilling. More than once, Mia caught him looking at her with an expression that seemed to blur the lines between who she was and who she was pretending to be. She had little time for her regular life during this period. She called in sick to the restaurant, ignoring her manager's thinly veiled threats about job security. Jade was appeased by Mia's ability to not only pay her share of the rent, but cover the utilities as well, though she remained suspicious about the sudden windfall. "Did you rob a bank?" Jade asked one night, half joking, as Mia practiced walking in the ridiculously expensive heels that had been selected for her gala appearance. "Art commission," Mia replied vaguely. "A big one." The night of the gala arrived with alarming speed. Mia stood in a luxurious hotel suite that Alex had arranged for her preparation, hardly recognizing her reflection in the full-length mirror. The woman staring back at her wore a midnight blue gown that flowed like water over her curves, the fabric catching the light with each movement. Her hair was styled in elegant waves, her makeup subtle but transformative, emphasizing the features she shared with Elise while minimizing the differences. Around her neck gleamed a sapphire pendant that Alex had delivered that morning, a piece that had belonged to Elise, the accompanying note explained. The weight of it against her skin was a constant reminder of the woman she was impersonating, a woman who might be dead, a woman whose life she was temporarily stepping into. A soft knock at the door announced the arrival of Alex. He entered, resplendent in a black tuxedo, and stopped short when he saw her. "My God," he whispered, a complex mixture of emotions crossing his face. "The resemblance is uncanny," Mia supplied, trying to lighten the suddenly charged atmosphere. Alex composed himself quickly. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "Are you ready?" Mia took a deep breath, fighting the urge to run back to her simple life in Queens. "As ready as I'll ever be." The ride to the Metropolitan Museum of Art was silent, tension building with each passing block. Mia's mind raced with all the ways this deception could go wrong, all the potential consequences she hadn't fully considered when she signed those contracts. "Remember," Alex said as the car pulled up to the museum's illuminated entrance where photographers and attendees milled about, "you're not claiming to be Elise. If anyone asks directly, you'll simply say you're not comfortable discussing the past. Most people will be too polite to press further." Mia nodded, her throat too dry for words. Alex squeezed her hand reassuringly before stepping out of the car. Camera flashes immediately erupted as he rounded the vehicle to open her door. The moment Mia emerged, a hush fell over the nearest group of attendees. She heard gasps, saw wide eyes and hands covering mouths in shock. A photographer dropped his camera. Someone whispered, "Elise?" loud enough to carry. Alex's hand found the small of her back, steadying her as she navigated the steps in her unfamiliar heels. "Smile," he murmured close to her ear. "You're doing wonderfully." Mia forced her lips into what she hoped was a convincing smile, desperately trying to channel the confident poise that everyone had told her was Elise's signature trait. As they approached the entrance, a woman in a striking red gown broke away from a group and hurried toward them, her expression a mixture of shock and calculation. "Alex?" the woman said, air-kissing his cheek before turning her piercing gaze on Mia. "And this must be your new friend I've heard so much about." "Charlotte," Alex greeted her with a warmth that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yes, this is Mia Bennett. Mia, my sister, Charlotte Reed." Charlotte's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly at the use of Mia's real name, but she recovered quickly. "Charmed," she said, taking Mia's hand. "Truly, the resemblance is remarkable." Before Mia could respond, a murmur swept through the crowd behind them. She turned to see a man pushing his way forward, his face contorted with shock and something that looked almost like fear. "Impossible," the man gasped, staring at Mia as if he'd seen a ghost. "Elise?" Mia froze as the man approached, his face ashen as if he truly were seeing a ghost. Alex's hand tightened on her waist, a subtle warning. "James," Alex greeted the man with practiced calm. "I see you've noticed my guest, Mia Bennett." James shook his head, eyes never leaving Mia's face. "No, that's not... This isn't possible." Charlotte stepped between them, her smile tight. "James, darling, you're making a scene. Perhaps you've had too much champagne already?" "I know what I'm seeing," James insisted, his voice rising. People nearby had stopped their conversations, turning to watch the unfolding drama. "That's Elise. How are you doing this, Reed?" Alex's expression remained impassive, but Mia felt the tension radiating from him. "James, let me introduce you properly. This is Mia Bennett, an artist who is working on a series of portraits for me. Mia, this is James Whitaker, a business associate." "Associate?" James laughed bitterly. "Is that what we're calling it now? After everything your family did to mine?" The crowd's attention was now fully on them, whispers rippling through the elegant gathering. Mia's heart hammered against her ribs, but she remembered her coaching, channel Elise's confidence, her poise. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Whitaker," she said, extending her hand with a grace that didn't feel like her own. "Though I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding." James ignored her outstretched hand, his eyes wild. "You even sound like her. What kind of sick game is this, Reed?" Before the situation could escalate further, a distinguished older man with silver hair approached. "James, I believe your father is looking for you," he said firmly, placing a hand on James's shoulder. "Mr. Reed, Ms. Bennett, please excuse this interruption. James has been under considerable stress lately." "Of course, Senator," Alex replied smoothly. "No harm done." The senator steered a still protesting James away, leaving an awkward silence in their wake. Charlotte let out a delicate laugh designed to dispel tension. "Well, that was dramatic," she said. "Come, let's get you both a drink. You look like you could use one, Mia." As they made their way through the crowd, Mia whispered to Alex, "Who was that?" "James Whitaker," Alex murmured back. "Son of Victor Whitaker, my former business partner. There's bad blood between our families. And he knew Elise? They met a few times at events like this. His reaction was stronger than I anticipated. Charlotte, who had been walking ahead, glanced back at them with a look that suggested they should table the discussion. They had reached the bar, where a server in a crisp uniform immediately presented them with champagne. "To new beginnings," Charlotte said, raising her glass with a meaningful look at Mia. The next hour passed in a blur of introductions and small talk. Mia found herself swept from one group to another on Alex's arm, each new encounter bringing curious glances and barely concealed whispers. She relied heavily on the coaching she'd received, keeping her responses vague when questions veered too close to Elise territory, deflecting with practiced smiles and subtle changes of subject. Through it all, Alex remained close, his hand rarely leaving the small of her back. His touch was both reassuring and unsettling, a constant reminder of the bizarre bargain they'd struck. "You're doing beautifully," he whispered during a brief moment alone as they stood before an impressive floral arrangement in the museum's grand hall. "The word is already spreading. By midnight, half of New York society will believe Elise has returned." "And the other half?" Mia asked. A shadow crossed Alex's face. "We'll be asking questions, which is exactly what I want." Before Mia could inquire further, Charlotte appeared at her elbow. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone who's absolutely dying to meet Mia." She linked her arm through Mia's, effectively separating her from Alex. "I'll bring her right back, brother dear." Charlotte guided Mia toward a quieter area of the gala, near a display of ancient Greek artifacts. "You're quite convincing," she said, her tone conversational but her eyes sharp. "Even I might be fooled if I didn't know better." "Thank you?" Mia replied uncertainly. Charlotte stopped, turning to face Mia directly. "Let me be clear. I'm helping Alex because he's my brother and I believe he had nothing to do with what happened to Elise. But this charade you're participating in, it's dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "Alex hasn't told you everything," Charlotte said, lowering her voice. "Elise wasn't just some socialite who disappeared. She was asking questions, digging into Reed family business, the kind of questions that make powerful people nervous." Mia's stomach tightened. "What kind of questions?" "About our father's business practices, about certain acquisitions that happened under questionable circumstances." Charlotte glanced around, ensuring they weren't overheard. "About the Whitaker bankruptcy." "The Whitakers? Like that man, James?" Charlotte nodded. "Victor Whitaker was our father's closest friend and business partner for 20 years, until Dad orchestrated a hostile takeover that left Victor penniless. Victor killed himself 3 months later. James has never forgiven our family, especially Alex, who led the final negotiations." Mia tried to reconcile this information with the Alex she thought she knew, both the boy from her past and the man who had offered her this strange opportunity. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you should know what you're involved in," Charlotte replied. "Elise started looking into the Whitaker case about a month before she disappeared. She believed there was evidence that could implicate Alex in corporate fraud." "Did she find anything?" Charlotte's expression was unreadable. "I don't know. But I do know that if she did, and if that's why she disappeared, then whoever is responsible won't be pleased to see her, or someone who looks remarkably like her, back in circulation." A chill ran through Mia despite the warmth of the crowded room. "Are you saying I could be in danger?" "I'm saying be careful, watch your back, and don't trust everything my brother tells you." Charlotte's smile returned, bright and artificial, as she spotted someone approaching. "Eleanor! How lovely to see you!" An elegant older woman joined them, her keen eyes immediately fixing on Mia. "Charlotte, dear, and this must be the young woman everyone is whispering about." "Eleanor Lockwood, this is Mia Bennett," Charlotte introduced them. "Eleanor is on the board of the museum with Alex." "Enchanted," Eleanor said, studying Mia with undisguised curiosity. "The resemblance is truly remarkable. I knew Elise quite well, you know. We served on several charity committees together. Mia summoned her most gracious smile. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Lockwood. Tell me, dear, where did you and Alex meet? Eleanor asked, her tone light but her gaze penetrating. Before Mia could answer, Alex appeared at her side as if summoned. Rescuing you from my sister's clutches, he said lightly, though his eyes conveyed a different message as they briefly met Charlotte's. Eleanor, wonderful to see you. I hope you don't mind if I steal Mia away. There are a few more people I'd like her to meet. Of course, Eleanor replied, though I do hope we'll have a chance to chat later, Ms. Bennet. I find you intriguing. As Alex led her away, Mia felt the weight of Eleanor's gaze following them. She knew Elise well? Eleanor knows everyone well, Alex replied. She's one of the city's premier gossips. Whatever you told her would be disseminated to half of Manhattan by breakfast tomorrow. Charlotte said Elise was investigating your family's business practices before she disappeared, Mia said quietly. Specifically something about the Whitakers. Alex's step faltered almost imperceptibly. My sister talks too much. Is it true? Alex guided her toward a less crowded area near a massive marble sculpture. It's complicated, Mia. Elise had concerns about some of my business dealings. We argued about it. It's one of the reasons some people suspected me when she disappeared. Did she find something incriminating? No, Alex said firmly, because there was nothing to find. The Whitaker situation was unfortunate but completely legal. My father's methods were cutthroat, yes, but never criminal. Mia wasn't entirely convinced, but before she could press further, a commotion near the entrance caught their attention. A woman was arguing with security, her voice rising above the murmur of the crowd. I have every right to be here. I'm on the guest list. Helena Winters, +1. What is she doing here? Alex muttered, his expression darkening. Who is she? Mia asked. Helena Winters, society columnist specializing in scandal and character assassination. Alex's jaw tightened. And Elise's best friend. Mia's eyes widened. You said her close friends were abroad. They were supposed to be, Alex replied grimly. Helena was in Paris as of yesterday. The security guards had finally allowed Helena through and she was scanning the room with purpose. Her gaze landed on Alex and Mia and her face transformed with shock. We need to leave, Alex said, taking Mia's elbow. Now. But it was too late. Helena was already making her way toward them, pushing past other guests with determined strides. She stopped a few feet away, her face pale as she stared at Mia. What is this? She demanded, her voice trembling. What the hell is this, Alex? Helena, Alex greeted her with forced calm. I wasn't aware you were back in the country. Clearly, she snapped, her eyes never leaving Mia's face. Is this why you didn't return my calls? You've replaced Elise with a lookalike? How dare you? Guests nearby turned to watch the confrontation, their expressions ranging from embarrassment to avid interest. Mia felt herself shrinking under Helena's furious gaze. You've misunderstood the situation, Alex said, his voice low. This is Mia Bennet, an artist I've commissioned for a series of portraits. Bullshit, Helena spat. You expect me to believe this is a coincidence? That she just happens to look exactly like Elise? What kind of sick game are you playing? Charlotte appeared, placing herself between Helena and Alex. Helena, you're making a scene. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. I don't want privacy. I want answers. Helena turned her attention to Mia. Do you know what you've gotten yourself into? Do you know what he's capable of? Security was approaching again, drawn by the disturbance. Alex turned to Mia, his expression tense. We're leaving. Now. This time, Mia didn't resist as he guided her toward a side exit. She heard Helena calling after them, her voice laced with both anger and pain. She trusted you, Alex. She loved you, and look what happened to her. As they stepped into the cool night air, Mia felt a profound sense of unease. Alex, I think you need to tell me the whole truth about Elise. Before he could respond, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Peterson emerged from the driver's seat, his expression grave. "Sir, there's been a development," he said. "They've found something in the Thames, a woman's body." Alex's face drained of color. "Is it—" "They're not sure yet," Peterson replied, "but they found her wallet nearby, ID belonging to Elise Montclair." Mia stared at Peterson, then at Alex, trying to process what she'd just heard. A body. Elise's ID. The implications were staggering, threatening to collapse the careful construct they'd created. "Get in," Alex said, his voice hollow as he opened the car door for her. Mia hesitated. The night had already spiraled beyond her expectations, and every instinct told her to walk away, to return to her simple life in Queens and forget she'd ever agreed to this arrangement. But the look on Alex's face, a mixture of shock, grief, and something else she couldn't quite identify, made her slide into the back seat. Alex followed, sitting close enough that she could feel the tension radiating from his body. Peterson took the wheel, and the car pulled smoothly away from the curb just as Helena emerged from the museum, scanning the street with frantic eyes. "Where are we going?" Mia asked. "My office," Alex replied. "I need to make some calls." They rode in silence, the city lights blurring past the windows. Mia's mind raced with questions, but she held them back, sensing Alex's need to process. Only when they were ascending in the private elevator to Reed Enterprises did she finally speak. "If they've found Elise's body, what does that mean for this arrangement?" Alex's eyes met hers, his gaze unreadable. "It means things have become more complicated." The elevator doors opened directly into his office suite. Peterson remained with them, standing unobtrusively near the door while Alex moved to his desk and began making calls. Mia caught fragments of conversations, coroners, identification procedures, international protocols for body retrieval. She sat in one of the leather chairs, suddenly exhausted. The events of the evening seemed surreal, like a film playing out around her rather than her actual life. The sapphire pendant felt heavy against her skin, a constant reminder of the woman whose identity she'd temporarily assumed, a woman who might now be confirmed dead. After what seemed like hours, Alex hung up his final call and turned to her. "The situation is still unclear. The body was discovered by a tour boat near Tower Bridge, badly decomposed. The ID was found in a purse nearby, not on the body itself. They can't make a positive identification without dental records or DNA, which will take time." "So it might not be her?" Mia asked. "It's possible," Alex conceded. "The timing is suspicious. Just as we begin to create public doubt about Elise's disappearance, a body surfaces with her identification." Mia frowned. "You think it's connected to our charade at the gala?" "I think very little happens by coincidence in my world, Mia." Alex rubbed his temples, a rare display of vulnerability. "Someone wants to ensure Elise stays missing, or is presumed dead." "The same someone who you think took her in the first place?" Alex nodded slowly. "Perhaps." Mia stood, pacing the spacious office. "Alex, I need the whole truth. Who would want to hurt Elise, and why? What was she really investigating?" Alex exchanged a glance with Peterson, who gave a subtle nod before excusing himself from the room. Once they were alone, Alex sighed deeply. "Elise wasn't just investigating my family's business practices," he began. "She was investigating a specific project, a development deal in Southeast Asia that would have been worth billions. She believed there were irregularities in how the land was acquired." "What kind of irregularities?" "Allegations of local officials being bribed, environmental regulations circumvented, indigenous communities displaced." Alex's voice was clinical, detached. "Standard operating procedure in that part of the world, unfortunately, but not something that would play well in the Western press." "Did you know about these practices?" Mia asked quietly. Alex met her gaze unflinchingly. "I authorized them." Mia felt a coldness settle in her stomach. The Alex she'd once known, the idealistic boy with dreams of creating beautiful, sustainable architecture, seemed very far away from the man before her. Elise discovered documentation, Alex continued. Emails, payment records, agreements with local officials. She confronted me, threatened to take it public. We argued, and she left for London the next day. That was the last time I saw her. You think someone in your company silenced her to protect the deal? Or someone working for our partners overseas? The project involved multiple corporations, governments, investment groups. The stakes were enormous. Mia wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly chilled despite the comfortable temperature of the office. Why didn't you tell me this from the beginning? Would you have agreed to help me if I had? Alex countered. Probably not, Mia admitted. So what happens now? If that body is identified as Elise, this whole pretense falls apart, which is why we need to act quickly. Alex moved toward her, his expression intent. Tomorrow morning we need to be seen together, publicly. Having breakfast at Balthazar, perhaps. We need to establish that you're not claiming to be Elise, just someone who bears a striking resemblance to her. And after that? After that, I need your help with something else. Alex hesitated, then continued. I need access to Elise's apartment. It's been sealed since her disappearance, police orders. But there might be information there, something she discovered that could lead us to whoever took her. Why do you need me for that? Surely you have keys. I do. But the building has doormen who knew Elise well. They won't question her entering her own apartment, especially if she's accompanied by her fiancé. Mia stared at him, the full implications dawning on her. You want me to impersonate Elise to get past security? That's breaking and entering, Alex. It's illegal. Technically, it would be trespassing at worst. The apartment is still in Elise's name, and I'm listed as a co-occupant on the lease. Alex ran a hand through his hair, disturbing its perfect arrangement. I know I'm asking a lot, Mia, but if that body is Elise's, then whoever is responsible might get away with it unless we find what she was hiding. Mia turned away, moving to the window to gaze out at the city lights. She had already crossed so many lines, ventured so far from her ordinary life. Yet something in Alex's desperation seemed genuine. Beneath the polished exterior of the successful businessman, she glimpsed the boy she had once known, the one who had valued truth and justice. One condition, she said finally, turning back to face him. If we find anything incriminating, anything that suggests criminal activity by you or your company, we turn it over to the authorities, all of it. Alex's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Agreed. Peterson returned a moment later, knocking discreetly before entering. Sir, Ms. Winters is downstairs demanding to see you. Security is holding her in the lobby, but she's threatening to call the police if you don't speak with her. Alex cursed under his breath. She won't go away, will she? He thought for a moment, then nodded. Send her up. Are you sure that's wise? Mia asked once Peterson had left to relay the instructions. Helena knew Elise better than anyone. She might have information we need. Alex moved to a cabinet and withdrew a bottle of scotch and 3 glasses. And it's better to confront her directly than to have her spreading theories to the press. Minutes later, Helena Winters burst into the office, her elegant gala attire at odds with her disheveled hair and smudged makeup. She stopped short when she saw Mia, still in her evening gown. You! Helena hissed, then turned to Alex. I just heard the news. A body in the Thames. Is it her? Is it Elise? They don't know yet, Alex replied, his voice calm. Preliminary identification could take days. Helena laughed bitterly. How convenient for you. Just as you parade this look-alike around town, Elise's body conveniently appears, washing away any suspicion that you were involved in her disappearance. I had nothing to do with what happened to Elise, Alex said, an edge creeping into his voice. Then explain her, Helena demanded, jabbing a finger toward Mia. Explain why you've hired someone who could be Elise's twin to pose as your new girlfriend. I'm not posing as anyone, Mia interjected, finding her voice. I'm an artist. Alex commissioned me to paint his portrait. The resemblance to Elise is coincidental. Helena scoffed. Do you really expect me to believe that? I was Elise's best friend for 10 years. We spoke nearly every day. She told me everything, including her suspicions about you, Alex. Alex poured 3 glasses of scotch, offering one to Helena, which she ignored. I know she was concerned about the Southeast Asia project. We argued about it, but I would never have harmed her. Not personally, perhaps, Helena conceded, finally taking the offered drink. But you Reed men have always been adept at keeping your hands clean while others do your dirty work. An uncomfortable silence settled over the room. Mia watched the interplay between Alex and Helena, sensing layers of history and tension beneath their exchange. Why are you really here, Helena? Alex asked eventually. Besides accusing me of murder. Helena downed her scotch in one swallow, grimacing at the burn. I want to know what she found. Before she disappeared, Elise told me she had evidence, something concrete that implicated not just your company but others, something bigger than the land deal. She never shared the details with me, Alex said. Liar, Helena spat. She was going to confront you with it that weekend in London. She had it with her. Mia's attention sharpened. Had what with her? Helena turned to Mia, studying her as if truly seeing her for the first time. A flash drive, with documents, emails, financial records. She kept it on her at all times in a locket she always wore. Alex frowned. The silver one? With the engraving? Yes. It wasn't just jewelry. It opened up. The drive was hidden inside. Helena's eyes narrowed. You didn't know that, did you? No, Alex admitted. She told me it was a family heirloom. Helena laughed without humor. That was Elise, hiding secrets in plain sight. She set her empty glass down with deliberate care. If that body is hers, the locket might still be with her personal effects. Unless, of course, whoever took it knows exactly what it contained. The implication hung heavy in the air. Mia glanced at Alex, whose expression had become unreadable again. I'm going to London, Helena announced abruptly. First flight tomorrow. I want to be there when they identify the body. I owe Elise that much. I'll have my jet prepared, Alex offered. You can be there by morning. Helena looked surprised by the gesture but nodded curtly. Fine, but don't think this makes us allies, Reed. I still don't trust you, or your new pet project. She glanced dismissively at Mia before heading for the door. At the threshold, she paused, looking back at them. If that body is Elise's, and if I find even a shred of evidence linking you to her death, I will burn your entire empire to the ground. That's a promise. After she left, Mia released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She's terrifying. And determined, Alex agreed, which makes our timeline even more pressing. We need to get into Elise's apartment before Helena returns from London. And if the body is identified as Elise's, Alex's expression turned grim. Then we're no longer looking for a missing woman. We're looking for a murderer. Morning brought a fresh wave of anxiety as Mia sat across from Alex at a prime table in Balthazar. The legendary Soho restaurant buzzed with New York's elite enjoying their breakfast, many of whom had been at the gala the previous night. Their curious glances were not lost on Mia, who picked at her barely touched eggs Benedict. Try to eat something, Alex encouraged quietly. And smile occasionally. We're supposed to be enjoying each other's company. Mia forced a small smile, taking a sip of her cappuccino. She'd spent the night in the hotel suite Alex had arranged, sleep eluding her as she replayed the events of the gala and Alex's revelations about Elise's investigation. The morning papers had already picked up the story of her appearance at the gala, with one society columnist noting the uncanny resemblance to the still-missing Elise Montclair. Have you heard anything from London? She asked, keeping her voice low. Alex shook his head slightly. Nothing definitive yet. Helena's plane landed an hour ago. She'll be at the morgue by now. The thought sent a chill through Mia. A woman who might look remarkably like her was lying on a cold slab in London, waiting to be identified. It felt surreal, macabre. "There's Senator Lockwood," Alex noted, nodding toward an older man being seated across the restaurant. "Eleanor's husband. Don't look directly, but he's watching us." Mia casually adjusted her posture, angling herself away from the senator's line of sight. "Does everyone in your world spy on each other over breakfast?" A hint of a genuine smile touched Alex's lips. "Information is currency, Mia, more valuable than money in many cases. Is that why Elise was so dangerous to you? Because of the information she had?" The smile vanished. "Elise wasn't dangerous to me. She was dangerous to certain interests that intersected with mine. There's a difference." "A convenient one," Mia observed. Before Alex could respond, a waiter approached with fresh coffee. When he'd gone, Alex leaned forward. "We've been seen by enough people. Are you ready for the next phase?" Mia nodded, though her stomach twisted with apprehension. Breaking into Elise's apartment, even if Alex technically had a right to be there, felt like crossing a line she couldn't uncross. They took Alex's private car to an elegant pre-war building on the Upper East Side. The limestone facade spoke of old money and discretion, with a uniformed doorman guarding the entrance. Mia's pulse quickened as they approached. She was wearing another outfit selected from Elise's wardrobe, a simple but expensive sheath dress in deep burgundy, paired with a camel coat that Vivian had assured her was one of Elise's favorites. "Remember," Alex murmured as they neared the entrance, "confidence is key. You're not doing anything wrong. This is your home." The doorman straightened as they approached, his eyes widening slightly as he caught sight of Mia. "Ms. Montclair," he said, his professional demeanor slipping momentarily. We hadn't been informed you were returning." "Hello, Thomas," Alex interjected smoothly. "We're just stopping by to pick up a few things." Thomas nodded, still staring at Mia with barely concealed shock. "Of course, Mr. Reed. Shall I announce you upstairs?" "No need," Alex replied. "We won't be long." In the elevator, Mia released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "He recognized me. He thought I was her. Thomas has been the morning doorman here for 15 years. He prides himself on knowing every resident." Alex inserted a key into the elevator panel, turning it to access the penthouse level. So far, so good. The elevator opened directly into a spacious foyer. Alex disabled the alarm system with a code, then led Mia into what was clearly Elise's home. The apartment was stunning. High ceilings, herringbone floors, walls painted in soft neutrals that showcased an impressive collection of contemporary art. It was elegant, yet comfortable, reflecting a refined aesthetic that Mia immediately envied. "It's been kept exactly as it was," Alex explained, moving through the space with familiar ease. "The police investigated initially but found nothing suspicious. After that, I insisted nothing be disturbed." Mia wandered into the living room, taking in the details. Fresh flowers still sat in vases, now dried and brittle. Books remained stacked on the coffee table, a bookmark still protruding from one. It was as if Elise had just stepped out momentarily, expected to return at any moment. "Where do we start?" Mia asked, feeling like an intruder despite Alex's assurances. "Her office. If she was compiling evidence, that's where we'll find it." The office was a sunny corner room with built-in bookshelves and a sleek desk overlooking the park. Here, too, everything was meticulously organized. Files arranged by category, books alphabetized, pens aligned in a ceramic holder. She was very systematic, Mia observed. "Elise believed in order," Alex replied, a hint of fondness in his voice. "She used to say that clarity of space led to clarity of thought." Mia began examining the bookshelves while Alex logged into Elise's computer. The books ranged from literary classics to dense tomes on international finance and corporate law. One section was dedicated to humanitarian causes, climate change, refugee crises, corporate accountability. "Her password still works," Alex murmured, brow furrowed as he navigated through files. But there's nothing here about the Southeast Asia project. She must have kept that information elsewhere. Mia pulled out a book on corporate ethics, flipping through it absently. A slip of paper fell out, a receipt from a coffee shop in London, dated 2 days before Elise's disappearance. On the back, scrawled in hurried handwriting, CW, 4 p.m., Docks Re Sarawak. Alex, look at this. She handed him the receipt. Sarawak. Isn't that in Malaysia? Part of your development project? Alex stared at the note, his expression tightening. Yes, and CW could be Craig Whitaker. As in, related to James and Victor Whitaker? Victor's younger brother. He was against the Reed takeover of Whitaker Industries. Vocally opposed it, in fact. Alex rubbed his jaw, thinking, if Elise was meeting with him, then maybe the Whitakers weren't just collateral damage in your business dealings, Mia finished. Maybe there was something specific about that takeover she was investigating. They continued searching, methodically working through drawers, checking books for more hidden notes, examining the backs of picture frames. In a decorative box on the bookshelf, Mia found a small key. Safety deposit box, maybe? She suggested, showing it to Alex. Possibly, or... His eyes lit with realization. Her jewelry box, in the bedroom. The master bedroom was a serene space in shades of ivory and pale blue. A large 4-poster bed dominated the room, flanked by elegant nightstands. On the dresser sat an antique jewelry box inlaid with mother of pearl. Alex took the key from Mia and tried it in the lock. It fit perfectly. Inside, nestled among velvet-lined compartments containing earrings, bracelets, and necklaces, was a false bottom that slid away to reveal a hidden space. Within it lay a small red leather notebook. Her journal, Alex said softly, lifting it out. She always kept one, but I never knew where she hid it. He opened it carefully, revealing pages filled with neat, precise handwriting. Dates, names, amounts, all carefully documented with Elise's characteristic attention to detail. As they flipped through, a pattern emerged. A record of payments from Reed Enterprises to various officials and business entities in Southeast Asia, alongside notes about environmental violations and displaced communities. She was building a case, Mia said, reading over his shoulder, methodically documenting everything. Alex's face had grown pale. These payments... I authorized some of them, but others... He pointed to several entries. These were made without my knowledge, using corporate accounts I don't directly oversee. Who would have access to those accounts? Board members, senior executives. Alex continued turning pages, his expression growing more troubled. My father before he died, and Charlotte as a major shareholder. The final pages of the journal contained entries from the week before Elise's disappearance. The last one, dated the day she left for London, contained just a few lines. Meeting CW tomorrow. He claims to have proof that the Whitaker takeover was orchestrated using insider information obtained illegally. Says RE hacked into WI servers, stole proprietary data. If true, criminal charges. Need to confront A with everything before going public. Alex closed the journal, his face unreadable. She never made it to that meeting with me. But she might have met with Craig Whitaker, Mia pointed out. If he gave her evidence of corporate espionage, it would explain why someone wanted to silence her. Alex slipped the journal into his pocket. We need to find Craig Whitaker. As they continued searching the bedroom, Mia noticed a framed photograph on the nightstand. Alex and Elise on a beach somewhere, both laughing into the camera. They looked happy, in love. The sight of it stirred an unexpected pang of... something. Not quite jealousy, but a reminder that Elise had been real, not just a mystery to solve or a role to play. You really loved her, didn't you? Mia asked quietly. Alex paused, looking at the photograph. Yes, he said simply. Despite our disagreements, despite everything. Yes. I loved her. The raw honesty in his voice touched something in Mia. For all his power and wealth, in that moment Alex seemed vulnerable, human. It reminded her of the boy she'd once known in Oak Ridge, passionate, idealistic, before the world had hardened him. Their eyes met, and for a moment something electric passed between them. Then Alex's phone rang, shattering the moment. He checked the screen. "It's Peterson." Mia turned away, continuing to search while Alex took the call. She examined the bathroom, looking through medicine cabinets and drawers, finding nothing unusual. When she returned to the bedroom, Alex was ending his call, his expression grim. "What is it?" she asked. "They've completed the preliminary identification in London," he said. "The body is female, approximately the same age and build as Elise. The dental records are being compared now, but what? The body was found wearing a silver locket, exactly like the one Helena described." Mia felt her blood run cold. The one with the flash drive inside. Yes, but according to the police, when they opened it, it was empty. The implications hung heavily between them. If the locket had been emptied, someone had known exactly what they were looking for. "We need to go," Alex said urgently. "Now that Helena's involved, the police might decide to reseal the apartment." As they prepared to leave, Mia paused in the foyer, taking one last look at Elise's home, this space that had been preserved like a museum to a life interrupted. Her gaze fell on a small table near the door, where a ceramic dish held spare keys and loose change. Beneath it, barely visible, was the corner of what appeared to be a photograph. "Wait," she said, kneeling to retrieve it. It was a photograph that had been torn in half. The visible portion showed a coastal scene, rugged cliffs overlooking a turbulent sea. On the back, in the same handwriting as the journal, was written, "Insurance, if anything happens to me." "Alex, look at this." He took the photograph, studying it intently. "I don't recognize this place. It says insurance. Could she have hidden a backup of whatever was on that flash drive?" Alex's eyes widened with realization. Elise had a cottage on the Cornwall coast in England. It belonged to her mother's family. "We spent a weekend there once." He turned the photograph over again. "This could be it. If she hid backup evidence there, then we need to get to Cornwall before anyone else realizes its significance." Alex pulled out his phone. "I'll make arrangements. We can be there by tomorrow morning." As they left the apartment, Mia couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. In the elevator, she glanced at Alex. "What if we're not the only ones looking for this evidence? What if whoever took the flash drive from the locket knows about the cottage too?" Alex's jaw tightened. "Then we'd better hope we get there first." In the lobby, Thomas the doorman nodded respectfully as they passed. But as they stepped outside, Mia noticed a man across the street, partially concealed behind a newspaper. When he lowered it briefly, she caught a glimpse of his face, James Whitaker, watching them with undisguised hostility. "Alex," she murmured, nudging him. "We've got company." By the time Alex turned to look, James had disappeared into the crowd of pedestrians. But the message was clear. They weren't the only ones tracking Elise's final movements, and the race to uncover the truth had just become more dangerous. The private jet cut through clouds as it descended toward Newquay Airport in Cornwall. Mia gazed out the window at the patchwork of green fields and rugged coastline below, still struggling to process how quickly her life had transformed. Less than a week ago, she had been a struggling artist worrying about making rent. Now she was flying to England on a billionaire's private jet, chasing clues about a missing woman she was impersonating. Alex sat across from her, reviewing Elise's journal for what must have been the 10th time since they'd found it. Dark circles under his eyes betrayed his lack of sleep, his usual immaculate appearance slightly rumpled after the overnight flight. "Any new insights?" Mia asked, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. Alex closed the journal with a sigh. "Nothing definitive, but I'm increasingly convinced that someone within Reed Enterprises was operating without my knowledge. These payments to officials in Sarawak, they're from accounts I rarely monitor. Could it be Charlotte? His expression tightened. I don't want to believe my sister would be involved in anything illegal, but she's always been ambitious, more like our father than I am in many ways. And your father? What was he like? Ruthless, Alex replied without hesitation. Brilliant, but utterly without scruple when it came to business. He believed the ends always justified the means. He stared out the window, his profile sharp against the morning light. I spent most of my career trying to prove I could be successful without employing his methods. But you authorized some of those payments in Elise's journal, Mia pointed out gently. Alex met her gaze directly. Yes, I did. Business in that part of the world operates differently. Certain facilitation payments are expected. I told myself it was just cultural differences, not corruption. His laugh was hollow. Elise saw through that rationalization immediately. The captain's voice came over the intercom, announcing their final descent. As the plane banked for its approach, Mia found herself studying Alex. Despite everything she'd learned about his business practices, she couldn't quite reconcile the image of a corrupt corporate titan with the man beside her, a man who seemed genuinely devastated by Elise's disappearance, who was risking his reputation to uncover the truth. After landing, they were met by a sleek Range Rover that Peterson had arranged. Alex took the wheel, navigating the narrow country roads with surprising ease. I thought billionaires didn't drive themselves, Mia commented as they wound through a particularly picturesque village. The ghost of a smile touched Alex's lips. Only in the city, out here. He gestured to the rolling hills and ancient stone walls. This is where I feel most like myself. They drove in companionable silence for a while, the scenery growing wilder as they approached the coast. Eventually, Alex turned onto a nearly invisible track that wound through a copse of wind-bent trees. As they emerged, Mia caught her breath at the sight before them. Perched on a cliff overlooking the churning Atlantic stood a stone cottage that seemed to grow organically from the landscape. Weathered gray walls, a slate roof patched with moss, and windows that glinted in the midday sun. It was like something from a fairy tale. It's beautiful, Mia whispered as Alex parked beside the cottage. Elise loved it here, he said, his voice softening with memory. She said it was the only place where the world couldn't find her. Inside, the cottage was surprisingly spacious, with exposed beams, whitewashed walls, and comfortable furniture that invited relaxation. It had clearly been uninhabited for months, a fine layer of dust covering every surface, yet it retained a sense of warmth and personality that spoke of Elise's touch. "Where do we start?" Mia asked, setting down her small overnight bag. If Elise hid something here, it would be somewhere significant to her, but not obvious to others. Alex moved through the space with the familiarity of someone who had visited before, but the carefulness of someone who respected that this had been Elise's sanctuary, not his. They began a methodical search, checking bookshelves, examining loose floorboards, looking behind picture frames. In the small study, Mia found a collection of old leather-bound books that seemed out of place among Elise's more modern collection. "These look valuable," she called to Alex, who was searching the bedroom. He joined her, examining the volumes. They belonged to her grandfather. He was a rare book collector. Mia carefully removed one from the shelf, a first edition of Wuthering Heights. As she opened it, something fluttered to the floor, a pressed flower, long dried but still intact. "She loved doing that," Alex said, a note of tender recollection in his voice. "Pressing flowers in books to mark special memories." Mia continued examining the books, finding more pressed flowers, each seemingly placed with purpose. But it was in a volume of Tennyson's poetry that she found something different. A small brass key taped to an inside page, beside a pressed forget-me-not. "Alex, look at this." He took the key, turning it over in his fingers. Too small for a door. Safety deposit box, maybe? Or a locked drawer? Mia suggested, glancing around the study. Her eyes settled on an antique writing desk in the corner. Like that one, perhaps? The desk was beautiful, mahogany with inlaid leather on its surface, clearly an heirloom piece. Alex tried the key in the central drawer, but it didn't fit. They continued trying various locks until Mia noticed a nearly invisible keyhole on the side of the desk, partially concealed by decorative carving. "Try here," she said. The key slid in perfectly, and when Alex turned it, a hidden compartment sprang open at the back of the desk. Inside lay a sealed envelope and a small silver USB drive. "She did leave insurance," Alex murmured, carefully removing the items. The envelope contained a handwritten letter addressed simply, "To whom it may concern." Alex unfolded it, holding it so Mia could read alongside him. "If you're reading this, I am likely dead or missing," the letter began in Elise's elegant script. The accompanying drive contains evidence of corporate espionage, bribery, and environmental crimes committed by Reed Enterprises and its partners in the Sarawak Development Project. It also contains evidence that the takeover of Whitaker Industries was accomplished through illegal means, specifically the hacking of Whitaker's secure servers to obtain proprietary information and trade secrets. I've struggled with what to do with this information. My love for Alex conflicts with my commitment to truth and justice. I had hoped to confront him directly, to give him a chance to make things right before taking this evidence to the authorities. But if you're reading this, I never got that chance. I don't believe Alex personally authorized the more serious crimes detailed here, but his willful blindness to certain activities within his company makes him complicit. My hope is that this evidence will force a reckoning, not just for Reed Enterprises, but for an industry that has too long operated in ethical shadows. If anything happens to me, please ensure this information reaches the proper authorities, and tell Alex that despite everything, I loved him until the end. Elise Montclair. Alex stared at the letter, his face ashen. "She thought I knew," he whispered. "She thought I was looking the other way." Mia touched his arm gently. "But she still loved you. She wanted to give you a chance to make it right. A chance I never got." Alex carefully folded the letter and picked up the USB drive. "We need to see what's on this." He took out his laptop and plugged in the drive. It contained dozens of files meticulously organized into folders: emails, financial records, technical documents, and surveillance photos. As they began reviewing the contents, the full scope of what Elise had uncovered became clear. Someone within Reed Enterprises had indeed hired hackers to breach Whitaker Industries' security systems, stealing proprietary technology that had given Reed a decisive advantage in the takeover. The same parties had orchestrated an elaborate scheme of bribery and environmental cover-ups in Sarawak, far beyond the facilitation payments Alex had authorized. Most damning of all were a series of emails that implicated several Reed executives, including Charlotte, in what amounted to a conspiracy that had operated beneath Alex's awareness. "I can't believe Charlotte would do this," Alex said, his voice hollow as he read an email where his sister explicitly authorized a payment to hackers. "She knew how hard I'd worked to run the company ethically." "Maybe she thought she was protecting you," Mia suggested, "doing the necessary things so you could keep your hands clean." Before Alex could respond, a noise outside caught their attention, the crunch of tires on gravel. They moved to the window to see a black SUV pulling up beside their Range Rover. "Were you expecting someone?" Mia asked, tension coiling in her stomach. "No," Alex replied grimly. "No one knows we're here except Peterson." Two men emerged from the SUV, their purposeful movements setting off alarm bells in Mia's mind. One was tall and lean, moving with military precision. The other was shorter but powerfully built, and as he turned toward the cottage, Mia recognized him with a jolt of fear. "It's James Whitaker," she whispered. "How did he find us?" Alex quickly gathered the USB drive and letter, securing them in his pocket. We need to leave, now. There's a back door through the kitchen." They moved quickly, grabbing only their essential belongings. As they reached the kitchen, the sound of the front door being tested, then forced open, spurred them to move faster. "This way," Alex said, leading Mia through the rear door and onto a narrow path that wound along the cliff edge. Behind them, they heard James's voice calling out, "Check the whole place! They can't have gone far!" The path was treacherous, slippery from ocean spray and perilously close to the edge in places. Mia's heart hammered in her chest as they moved as quickly as they dared, the roar of the waves below nearly drowning out the sounds of pursuit. "There's a cove ahead," Alex explained between breaths. "Local fishermen use it. There might be a boat." As they rounded a bend in the cliff, Mia risked a glance back. The taller man had spotted them and was giving chase, with James not far behind. The narrow path provided no cover, nowhere to hide. "They're coming!" she gasped. Alex took her hand, steadying her as they navigated a particularly steep section. "Almost there. Don't look down." The path descended sharply toward a small, sheltered cove where, true to Alex's word, several small boats were pulled up on the narrow strip of sand. One, a motorboat, looked serviceable. "Do you know how to drive that?" Mia asked as they scrambled down the last section of path. "In theory," Alex replied, already pulling the boat toward the water. "I spent summers sailing with my grandfather." A shout from above indicated their pursuers had spotted them. Mia looked up to see the taller man pointing down at them, then starting to make his way down the path with alarming speed. "Whatever theoretical knowledge you have, now would be a good time to apply it," Mia urged, helping Alex push the boat into the surf. They clambered aboard, waves soaking them as Alex struggled with the motor. For a heart-stopping moment, it refused to start. Then, with a splutter and roar, the engine came to life just as the tall man reached the beach. Alex gunned the throttle, and the boat surged forward into the rolling waves. Mia looked back to see their pursuer standing at the water's edge, speaking urgently into a phone. James had reached the beach as well, his face contorted with fury as he watched their escape. "They'll call for backup!" Alex shouted over the engine and crashing waves. "We need to reach a town, find transportation back to the airport." As they bounced across the increasingly choppy water, heading along the coastline toward what appeared to be a larger harbor in the distance, Mia found herself gripping the side of the boat, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Why would James be here?" she called to Alex. "How would he even know about the cottage?" "I don't know," Alex replied, his expression grim as he navigated the swells. "But it confirms one thing. The evidence Elise found is dangerous enough that someone is desperate to keep it buried." The winds whipped Mia's hair around her face as she stared back at the receding figures on the beach. What had started as an unusual business arrangement had become something far more perilous. And as the Cornwall coast grew smaller behind them, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading not toward safety, but into an even greater storm. The small harbor town of Port Isaac bustled with tourists and locals, providing the perfect cover as Mia and Alex, still damp from their boat escape, slipped into a quaint cafe near the waterfront. Alex had abandoned the motorboat at the public dock, leaving cash tucked under the seat to compensate the owner. "I need to call Peterson," Alex said, his voice low as they settled at a corner table. "We need secure transportation back to London." While Alex made the call, Mia ordered tea for both of them, grateful for the warmth after their harrowing journey along the coast. Her hands still trembled slightly as she lifted the cup to her lips, the reality of their situation finally hitting her. They had been pursued, hunted really, by people who clearly meant them harm. This was no longer a simple deception or business arrangement. They were in genuine danger. Alex returned to the table, his expression tense. "Peterson's arranging a car. It should be here within the hour. We'll drive to a private airfield and fly directly to London." "Not back to New York?" "Not yet. Helena called Peterson this morning. The dental records confirmed it. The body in the Thames is Elise's." Despite having suspected this outcome, the confirmation hit Mia like a physical blow. The woman whose life she had briefly stepped into, whose clothes she had worn, whose identity she had borrowed, was truly gone. "I'm sorry, Alex," she said softly. His jaw tightened, grief and anger warring in his expression. "They're treating it as a murder investigation now. And given our sudden departure after the gala, followed by breaking into Elise's apartment, we're suspects," Mia finished for him. "I am, at least, which is why we need to examine everything on that USB drive. If we can identify who within Reed Enterprises was truly responsible for the corporate espionage and environmental crimes, we might find Elise's killer." They sat in tense silence for several minutes, both lost in thought as they sipped their tea. Mia studied Alex's face, noticing the lines of strain around his eyes, the tightness in his shoulders. Despite everything, she found herself believing in his innocence, at least regarding Elise's death. His shock at the revelations in Cornwall had seemed too genuine to be feigned. "Do you think Charlotte could be involved in what happened to Elise?" she asked finally, voicing the question that had been hovering between them since they'd read the emails. Alex's expression darkened. "I want to say no. She's my sister. But—" He trailed off, staring into his tea as if it might contain answers. "Charlotte always idolized our father. She believed in his methods, his philosophy that business was war and the only sin was losing. That doesn't make her a murderer. No. But it makes her someone who might have viewed Elise as an existential threat to everything she'd worked for." Alex looked up, meeting Mia's gaze directly. If Elise went public with that evidence, it wouldn't just damage Reed Enterprises, it would destroy it, and possibly send several executives, including Charlotte, to prison. The severity of the situation settled over them like a physical weight. Mia tried to reconcile the polished, calculating woman she'd met at the gala with someone capable of murder. It wasn't as difficult as she wished it to be. Peterson's arrangements proved impeccable. Within the hour, a nondescript black sedan with tinted windows arrived at the cafe. The driver, a taciturn man who introduced himself only as Campbell, seemed to know Alex well. "All secure, sir," he reported as they settled into the back seat. "We'll be at the airfield in 90 minutes." During the drive through the winding Cornish countryside, Alex used his laptop to examine the contents of Elise's USB drive more thoroughly. Mia watched over his shoulder, her artist's eye catching details in photographs and documents that might otherwise have been overlooked. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a series of surveillance photos showing Charlotte meeting with a man in what appeared to be a hotel lobby. "Isn't that the same man who was with James at the cottage? The tall one?" Alex zoomed in, his expression hardening. "That's Miles Donovan. Former military, now works in private security. My father used his services occasionally for sensitive matters. I never have. But Charlotte apparently does. It seems so." Alex continued through the files, opening a folder labeled simply WI. Inside were technical documents clearly marked as Whitaker Industries proprietary information, along with emails discussing how they had been obtained. One email thread particularly caught their attention, an exchange between Charlotte and Miles Donovan discussing payment for acquiring certain Whitaker files. "We need access to their R&D server," Charlotte had written. "The Asian project depends on getting their geological survey data. A won't authorize conventional methods. Handle it your way, usual compensation structure." "A, that's you," Mia said. "Yes." Alex's voice was tight with controlled anger. "She used my refusal to authorize industrial espionage as justification for doing it behind my back." As they neared the airfield, Alex discovered an encrypted file that required a password. After several attempts using variations of Charlotte's birth date and other personal information, he sat back in frustration. "I can't crack it." Mia thought for a moment. "Try Wuthering Heights." "What?" "The book where we found the key. It seemed significant to Elise." Alex typed it in, but the file remained locked. Mia frowned, thinking, what about the flower that was pressed in that book? What kind was it? "Forget-me-not," Alex replied, his eyes lighting with understanding. He typed in the flower name, and the file unlocked, revealing a video file. It was Elise, sitting in what appeared to be the Cornwall cottage, recording herself on a laptop camera. She looked tired but determined, her resemblance to Mia even more striking in motion. "If you're watching this," she began, "then my suspicions were correct, and I've either been silenced or worse. What I've uncovered goes beyond corporate malfeasance. Reed Enterprises didn't just steal Whitaker's technology, they destroyed evidence of environmental contamination that would have prevented the Sarawak project from ever being approved." Elise went on to detail how toxic waste from a previous Reed project had caused widespread illness in local communities, information that had been deliberately buried during the new project's environmental assessment. Charlotte Reed personally authorized the deletion of test results showing groundwater contamination. When Victor Whitaker discovered this during due diligence before a potential partnership, Reed orchestrated the hostile takeover to silence him. When that didn't work, Elise's voice faltered. "I believe they arranged his suicide. The evidence suggests his supposed suicide note was forged." Alex stared at the screen in horror. "No, my father wouldn't have. Charlotte wouldn't have. The truth is painful," Elise continued on screen as if answering him across time. "Alex, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I wanted to believe you knew nothing about these actions, that you were the man I fell in love with. But your willful blindness, your refusal to truly investigate your family's business practices, it makes you complicit." The video ended with Elise stating her intention to meet with Craig Whitaker in London to get final confirmation before taking everything to the authorities. The timestamp showed it had been recorded 2 days before her disappearance. Silence filled the car as the video ended. Alex closed the laptop slowly, his knuckles white with tension. "I didn't know," he said finally, his voice barely audible, "about any of it. The contamination, Victor's suicide. I swear, Mia, I didn't know." She believed him. The shock and grief on his face couldn't be manufactured. "But Charlotte did," she said gently. "And now we have to consider the possibility that she was involved in what happened to Elise." The private jet was waiting when they arrived at the airfield. Within minutes they were airborne, heading toward London. As the Cornish landscape receded beneath them, Mia found herself wondering how her life had taken such a dramatic turn. A week ago, her biggest concern had been making rent. Now she was flying over the English countryside with a billionaire, investigating corporate crimes and possibly murder. "What's our plan when we reach London?" she asked. "We need to confront Charlotte," Alex replied, his voice steady despite the emotion he was clearly suppressing. "She's flying to London today for a board meeting at our UK headquarters. If she's behind all of this—" He paused, struggling with the implications. "She needs to be held accountable." "That could be dangerous. If she is involved in Elise's death—" "I won't let anything happen to you," Alex interrupted, reaching across to take her hand. The gesture was unexpected but comforting. His fingers were warm against hers, the connection grounding them both in the chaos that surrounded them. "I'm more worried about you," Mia admitted. "She's your sister. This won't be easy." Alex's grip tightened slightly. "None of this has been easy, but having you with me—" He trailed off, seemingly unable to find the right words. "I don't know how to thank you for staying, for helping me uncover the truth." "I'm involved now," Mia said simply. "I need to see this through." Their eyes met, and something shifted between them, a recognition of how far they had come from their chance encounter on that rainy platform. The attraction that had been simmering beneath the surface of their partnership flared, heightened by the shared danger and revelations. For a moment, it seemed Alex might lean forward, might cross the narrow distance between them. Instead, he reluctantly released her hand and turned to look out the window. "We should rest while we can," he said. "London will be challenging." The Reed Enterprises UK headquarters occupied a gleaming tower in Canary Wharf. By the time Mia and Alex arrived, Evening was falling, the city lights beginning to twinkle against the darkening sky. Peterson had arranged for a change of clothes to be waiting at the private airfield, allowing them to arrive looking suitably professional rather than like fugitives who had fled down a cliff and escaped by boat. The security guards nodded respectfully as Alex led Mia through the lobby, his CEO credentials ensuring unquestioned access. In the elevator, he inserted a key card for the executive floor. "Charlotte should be in the boardroom," he said. The meeting was scheduled to end at 6. Mia's heart pounded as they walked down the hushed corridor of power. The stakes had escalated beyond anything she had imagined when she agreed to Alex's original proposition. They were no longer just seeking the truth about a missing woman. They were potentially confronting a murderer. The boardroom door was ajar, soft voices emanating from within. Alex paused, gesturing for Mia to wait as he peered through the gap. His body tensed suddenly, and he turned to her with a finger to his lips, indicating silence. Mia moved closer, positioning herself to see through the narrow opening. Inside the elegant boardroom, Charlotte stood with her back to the door, speaking in low, urgent tones to a man whose face Mia recognized immediately. Miles Donovan, the same man who had chased them in Cornwall. "Should never have gone to the cottage," Charlotte was saying, her voice tight with controlled fury. "Now they have the drive." "We've been monitoring all channels," Donovan replied calmly. "Nothing's been released to the media or authorities yet." "That's not the point," Charlotte slammed her hand on the table. "If Alex brings that evidence to the board, everything we've built, everything Father built, will be destroyed." "Then we need to make sure he doesn't reach the board," Donovan said, his tone chillingly matter-of-fact. "We've located them. They're in the building now." Alex pushed the door open fully, stepping into the room with an expression of cold determination. "Hello, Charlotte." His sister whirled around, shock momentarily breaking through her composed facade before she quickly recovered. "Alex, I thought you were in New York." Her gaze shifted to Mia, standing just behind him. "And Ms. Bennett. What an unexpected surprise." The tension in the room was palpable as the siblings faced each other across the polished expanse of the boardroom table. Donovan moved slightly, positioning himself near Charlotte in a subtly protective stance. "I know everything," Alex said quietly, "about Whitaker Industries, about the contamination in Sarawak, about what really happened to Victor Whitaker." He paused, his voice dropping even lower. "And I know what you did to Elise." Charlotte's expression remained impressively composed, only the slight tightening around her eyes betraying her alarm. "I don't know what you think you've discovered, Alex, but you're clearly upset. Perhaps we should discuss this privately." Her gaze flicked meaningfully toward Mia. "Mia stays," Alex said firmly. "She's seen the evidence. All of it." Charlotte sighed, setting her tablet on the table with deliberate casualness. "What evidence would that be exactly? Some wild theories Elise compiled? She was always prone to dramatic interpretations." "We have the USB drive from Cornwall," Mia interjected, surprised by her own boldness. "We've seen the emails, the documents, the video Elise recorded." Something dangerous flashed in Charlotte's eyes before she masked it with a smile. "Cornwall? I wasn't aware Elise owned property there." "Stop lying, Charlotte," Alex said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Your man Donovan was there. He chased us down a cliff. You knew exactly where to look for the evidence." Charlotte glanced at Donovan, who remained impassive, his posture relaxed but alert. She seemed to calculate her options before her shoulders dropped slightly in resignation. "Sit down, Alex," she said, gesturing to the boardroom chairs. "If we're going to have this conversation, we might as well be civilized about it." Alex remained standing. "I prefer to stand. Tell me about Elise. Did you have her killed?" The bluntness of the question hung in the air between them. Mia watched Charlotte closely, noticing the subtle tells of stress, a slight tremor in her perfectly manicured hands, the almost imperceptible quickening of her breath. "Don't be absurd," Charlotte replied after a moment. I had nothing to do with what happened to Elise. But you knew she was investigating the company, Mia pressed. You knew she had evidence of criminal activity that you were directly involved in. Charlotte's gaze snapped to Mia, cold and assessing. You're very invested in this for someone who was hired to paint a few portraits. She turned back to Alex. Your little look-alike project has clearly gotten out of hand, brother. What exactly did you tell her about our family business? I didn't need to tell her anything, Alex replied. Elise's evidence speaks for itself. The hacking of Whitaker's servers, the environmental cover-up in Sarawak, the forged suicide note. It's all documented. For the first time, Charlotte seemed genuinely taken aback. Suicide note? What are you talking about? Victor Whitaker, Alex clarified. Elise believed, and had evidence, that his suicide was staged. A flash of what looked like genuine confusion crossed Charlotte's face. That's impossible. Victor killed himself because he couldn't face his failure. His note was verified by handwriting experts. Experts paid by Reed Enterprises, Alex countered. Charlotte shook her head, something like uncertainty creeping into her expression. You don't understand what was at stake, Alex. The Whitaker acquisition was necessary. They had technology we needed for Sarawak. Father always said, "Father is dead." Alex cut her off. And his methods died with him. Or they were supposed to. You continued them behind my back. Because you were too weak to do what needed to be done. Charlotte's composure finally cracked, her voice rising. You wanted to play the enlightened CEO, the ethical businessman, while still reaping the benefits of a cutthroat industry. You can't have it both ways. So you decided to have it your way, Mia interjected, regardless of the consequences. Charlotte's eyes narrowed as she turned to Mia. You know nothing about this world, Ms. Bennett. Nothing about what it takes to succeed, to protect a legacy. I know right from wrong, Mia replied quietly. I know that covering up toxic contamination that's making people sick is wrong. I know that stealing proprietary information through hacking is wrong. I know that murder is wrong. Charlotte flinched at the last word. I never wanted anyone to die, she said, her voice suddenly subdued. That wasn't part of the plan. The admission hung in the air, heavy with implication. Alex took a step forward, his face taut with emotion. What happened to Elise, Charlotte? Tell me the truth. Charlotte exchanged a glance with Donovan, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. She sank into a chair, suddenly looking exhausted. It was supposed to be a simple intimidation, she began, not quite meeting Alex's eyes. When we learned that Elise was meeting Craig Whitaker in London, I sent Donovan to discourage her, to make it clear that pursuing her investigation would have consequences. You sent him to threaten my fiancée? Alex's voice was dangerously quiet. To scare her, that's all. Charlotte looked up, her expression pleading for understanding. But she wouldn't back down. She said she had evidence that would destroy everything, not just the Sarawak project, but the entire company. She threatened to expose not only the corporate espionage, but also Father's past dealings, decades of questionable practices. So Donovan killed her, Mia said, the pieces falling into place. No, Charlotte insisted, then hesitated. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. There was a struggle. Elise tried to run. She fell and hit her head. By the time Donovan realized how badly she was hurt, it was too late. Alex staggered slightly, as if physically struck by the revelation. Mia moved closer to him, instinctively offering support. You covered it up, Alex said, his voice hollow. You disposed of her body in the Thames. We panicked, Charlotte admitted. Everything was unraveling. The Sarawak deal was days from closing. Billions were at stake. If Elise's accusations came to light, she trailed off, then straightened, a hint of her usual confidence returning. I did what I had to do to protect the company, to protect our family name, to protect you. Me? Alex laughed bitterly. How was any of this protecting me? You were the CEO. ultimately responsible for everything that happened under your watch. If the truth about Whitaker, about Sarawak came out, you would have faced criminal charges, not just me." Charlotte's voice softened. "I was handling the ugly parts of the business so you could keep your hands clean, just like father did for grandfather." A heavy silence fell over the room as Alex processed this revelation. Mia watched the siblings, so similar in appearance yet now revealed to be fundamentally different in character. The weight of family legacy, of expectations and betrayals, seemed to press down on both of them. "And now?" Alex finally asked. "What was your plan when you learned we had the evidence?" Charlotte's gaze shifted to Donovan, who had moved subtly to block the boardroom door. "Initially to recover it before you could use it. Now," she sighed, "now we need to come to an arrangement, a way forward that protects the company and our family." "An arrangement?" Alex repeated incredulously. "Elise is dead because of you, and you want to make an arrangement?" "Be reasonable, Alex," Charlotte urged. "What good would it do to destroy everything now? The company employs thousands of people, our shareholders, our partners. They all depend on Reed Enterprises. Would you throw all that away for revenge?" "Not revenge," Alex corrected. "Justice." Charlotte shook her head sadly. "There's no path forward here that ends well for any of us if that evidence becomes public." She nodded to Donovan, who smoothly withdrew a gun from beneath his jacket. Mia felt her blood run cold at the sight of the weapon. This had escalated beyond corporate intrigue to life-threatening danger in the space of a heartbeat. "This is insane, Charlotte," Alex said, eyeing the gun. "You can't seriously think you can shoot us both in Reed Enterprises headquarters and get away with it." "No one's going to shoot anyone," Charlotte replied calmly. "But we are going to come to an understanding. The three of us are going to leave together, go somewhere private to discuss terms. Mr. Donovan is simply ensuring your cooperation." Mia's mind raced, assessing their options. The boardroom had no other exits. Donovan stood between them and the door, armed and clearly experienced. Alex seemed frozen, the betrayal by his sister apparently paralyzing him momentarily. "What about James Whitaker?" Mia asked suddenly. "Was he working with you too?" The question seemed to catch Charlotte off guard. "James? No. He's been conducting his own investigation into his father's death. He must have followed you to Cornwall independently." "And Craig Whitaker? The man Elise was meeting in London?" Charlotte's expression darkened. "Craig became problematic after Elise's disappearance. He was asking too many questions." "So you had him silenced too," Alex said, the realization dawning on his face. "It was a car accident," Charlotte replied defensively. "Nothing that could be traced back to us." Mia noticed a slight shift in Donovan's attention as he glanced at Charlotte, perhaps surprised by her candor. In that moment of distraction, Alex moved, lunging for the conference phone in the center of the table and smashing it against the edge with surprising force. The plastic shattered, setting off the security alarm that was built into all executive communication devices. Donovan raised his gun but hesitated, clearly reluctant to fire in a building full of witnesses with security already alerted. Charlotte jumped to her feet, her composed facade crumbling. "You fool!" she hissed at Alex. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" The sound of running footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Donovan moved away from the door, backing toward Charlotte, his gun now trained steadily on Alex. "This isn't over," Charlotte said, her voice tight with controlled fury. "There are contingencies in place. If anything happens to me, certain information about your own involvement in questionable deals will become public. Your hands aren't as clean as you think, brother." Before Alex could respond, the boardroom door burst open. Security personnel flooded in, their own weapons drawn, creating a momentary chaos of shouted commands and confusion. In the melee, Donovan managed to slip his gun out of sight, smoothly transforming from threatening enforcer to concerned security consultant. "Mr. Reed triggered the alarm," he explained to the head of security. "There seems to have been a misunderstanding." Alex stepped forward, his authority apparent in his bearing despite the emotional turmoil he must have been feeling. There's no misunderstanding. Mr. Donovan was threatening us with a firearm on Ms. Reed's instructions. I want him detained and the police called immediately. The security team hesitated, clearly conflicted about taking action against the company's senior leadership. Charlotte seized the moment of uncertainty. "My brother is under enormous stress," she said smoothly. "He's been making wild accusations since learning of his fiancée's death. This is a family matter that needs to be handled privately." "Check him for a weapon," Alex insisted, pointing at Donovan. As the security team moved to comply, Charlotte's phone chimed with a message. She glanced at it, and a cold smile spread across her face. "Actually, I believe there's a more pressing security concern." She turned the screen toward the head of security. "It seems Ms. Bennett here is wanted for questioning by the Metropolitan Police regarding the death of Elise Montclair." Mia's stomach dropped as all eyes in the room turned to her. "That's ridiculous," she protested. "I never even met Elise." "Yet you've been impersonating her, accessing her apartment, and fleeing the country with evidence related to her death," Charlotte countered. "How do you think that looks to investigators?" Alex moved to stand beside Mia, his shoulder brushing hers in a gesture of solidarity. "This is a transparent attempt to deflect from her own guilt," he told the security team. "Ms. Reed is implicated in corporate espionage and potential homicide. I have evidence on my person that proves it." The standoff in the boardroom had reached a critical point. Security personnel looked uncertainly between the Reed siblings, clearly unsure whose authority to follow. Donovan stood tense and ready, despite being surrounded, and Mia found herself caught in the middle of a powerful family's collapse, her own future hanging in the balance alongside Alex's search for justice. In that moment of tense uncertainty, the boardroom phone rang, cutting through the silence. The head of security answered it, listened briefly, then turned to Alex with a surprised expression. "Sir, there's someone in the lobby insisting on seeing you immediately. Says it's a matter of life and death." He hesitated. "It's Helena Winters, sir, and she says she has proof of who really killed Elise Montclair." The next few minutes passed in a blur of tension as security escorted the group to a private conference room where Helena Winters waited. She looked exhausted, her usual polished appearance rumpled from travel, dark circles shadowing her eyes. But there was a fierce determination in her gaze as it landed on Charlotte. "You didn't expect to see me so soon, did you?" Helena said, her voice cold. "Thought I'd be tied up in London for days with the police." Charlotte maintained her composure, though Mia noticed a slight tremor in her hand. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Ms. Winters. I understand you're grieving, but these wild accusations—" "Save it," Helena cut her off, placing a silver laptop on the conference table. "I've heard enough of your lies." Alex stepped forward. "You said you have proof about Elise's death?" Helena nodded grimly. "Elise was smarter than any of you gave her credit for. She knew she was in danger." She opened the laptop and turned it to face them. She set up a backup system. Everything she discovered, everything she recorded, was automatically uploaded to a secure server if she didn't enter a specific code every 72 hours. "That's why you couldn't find the flash drive in the locket," Mia realized. "She never kept the only copy with her?" "Exactly," Helena confirmed. "When I was in London identifying her body," her voice cracked slightly before she steadied herself, "the police gave me her personal effects. Among them was a key to a safety deposit box. Inside was a letter with instructions on how to access the server." She tapped a few keys, and a video began to play. It showed Elise in what appeared to be a hotel room in London, speaking directly to the camera. "If you're seeing this, I missed my check-in, which means something has happened to me." Elise's voice was calm, methodical. "I'm meeting Craig Whitaker tonight about the Reed Whitaker corporate espionage. Tomorrow I plan to confront Alex with everything I've found. But I'm being followed. A man I've seen before, one of Charlotte Reed's security people." The video continued, showing Elise detailing her findings and her fears. Then came the most damning evidence: a recording from what must have been a hidden camera in her handbag, showing her confrontation with Donovan in a deserted London park. The grainy footage clearly showed him threatening her, then the struggle that ensued when she tried to leave. The moment of her fatal fall was partially obscured, but the aftermath was clear. Donovan checking her pulse, then making a phone call. "We have a problem," his voice said on the recording. "She's dead. Yes, I understand. I'll handle it." The room fell silent as the video ended. Charlotte had gone pale, her carefully constructed facade crumbling completely. Donovan remained impassive, but his eyes darted toward the exits, calculating. "The Metropolitan Police have this footage now," Helena said into the silence, "along with all of Elise's evidence about the corporate crimes. They're issuing arrest warrants as we speak." As if on cue, the conference room door opened, and two serious-looking men in suits entered, flanked by uniformed police officers. "Charlotte Reed and Miles Donovan," one of them said, showing his badge. "Detective Inspector Warren, Metropolitan Police. You're both under arrest for the murder of Elise Montclair and conspiracy to obstruct justice." What followed was a surreal tableau. Charlotte, the poised and powerful businesswoman, being read her rights and handcuffed, her expression one of numb disbelief. Donovan submitted to the procedure with military stoicism, his face betraying nothing as he was led away. As they reached the door, Charlotte turned back to look at her brother one last time. "I was only doing what father would have expected," she said, her voice barely audible. "What you should have done yourself." Alex didn't respond, his face a mask of grief and anger as he watched his sister being taken away. In the aftermath, the conference room emptied of all except Alex, Mia, and Helena. The latter seemed to deflate once Charlotte and Donovan were gone, sinking into a chair as the adrenaline drained from her. "Thank you," Alex said quietly to Helena, "for bringing this to us instead of just to the police." Helena looked up at him, her expression complex, grief, anger, and something like pity mingled in her gaze. "I didn't do it for you, Reed. I did it for Elise. She loved you, God knows why." She paused, studying him. "But she also believed you were better than your family legacy, that you could change things." "I still can," Alex replied, his voice gaining strength. "And I will, starting today." Over the next week, the business world was rocked by a series of revelations and resignations as the full extent of the corruption within Reed Enterprises came to light. Alex, working with authorities in multiple countries, orchestrated a complete overhaul of the company's leadership and practices. The Sarawak project was halted pending environmental remediation, and a fund was established to compensate affected communities. The media frenzy was intense. Mia found herself hounded by reporters, her accidental resemblance to Elise making her a subject of morbid fascination. She retreated to her small Queens apartment, trying to process everything that had happened and determine what came next. She was adding the finishing touches to a painting when the knock came at her door. She knew who it was before she opened it. Alex stood in the hallway, looking different from the polished businessman she had first re-encountered on that rainy platform. He was casually dressed in jeans and a simple button-down shirt, his hair slightly tousled, dark circles under his eyes testifying to sleepless nights. "Hi," he said simply. "Hi," she replied, stepping back to let him in. He entered her small apartment, taking in the canvases stacked against walls, the paint-splattered drop-cloths, the essence of Mia that permeated the space, so different from the sterile luxury he was accustomed to. "I never got to properly thank you," he began, "for everything you did, for staying when you could have walked away." Mia shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "I was involved. I needed to see it through. It was more than that." Alex stepped closer. "You believed in the truth, in doing what was right, even when it was dangerous. You reminded me of who I used to be before I let myself become compromised." The sincerity in his voice touched something in Mia. "What happens now? With the company? With everything?" "A new beginning," Alex replied. The board has agreed to a complete restructuring. We're bringing in independent oversight, transparent business practices. We're going to make Reed Enterprises a force for positive change." He paused, his expression softening. "But that's not why I'm here." Mia felt her heart quicken. "Why are you here then?" "To fulfill our original agreement," Alex said, nodding toward her easel. "I still want those portraits, if you're still willing to paint them." Mia couldn't help but laugh. "After everything we've been through, you still want me to paint your portrait?" "I want more than that, Mia." Alex's voice was quiet but certain. "When we were in Cornwall, facing danger together, and later in London, I realized something. The connection I felt with you wasn't just gratitude or circumstance. It was real." Mia felt a warmth spreading through her chest, but caution tempered her response. "Alex, we've been through an extraordinary situation together. It's natural to feel connected, but your life is still worlds away from mine." "Maybe that's exactly what I need," he countered, moving closer. "Someone who sees beyond the wealth and power to the person beneath. Someone who reminds me of what really matters." He reached out, gently touching her cheek. "Someone like you." The moment hung between them, fragile and full of possibility. Mia thought of everything that had brought them to this point. A chance encounter in the rain, a case of mistaken identity, a journey through danger and revelation that had changed them both. "I'm not Elise," she said softly, needing to be sure he saw her for herself. "I know," Alex replied, his eyes never leaving hers. "You're Mia Bennett, the girl from Oak Ridge who became an artist, who sees the truth in people and has the courage to stand by her convictions. That's who I'm falling for." This time, when he leaned toward her, there was no hesitation, no interruption. Their lips met in a kiss that felt like both an ending and a beginning, the closing of one chapter and the opening of another. 2 months later, the gallery was packed for the opening night of Mia Bennett's first solo exhibition. Critics and collectors mingled with artists and friends, all drawn by the buzz surrounding her work. The centerpiece of the exhibition was a striking portrait of Alexander Reed, not the polished CEO, but the man beneath the facade, his expression complex and vulnerable, his eyes holding secrets and hopes in equal measure. "You've captured him perfectly," Helena Winters said, studying the painting with professional appreciation. Her relationship with both Mia and Alex had evolved into an unlikely friendship, bonded by their shared connection to Elise and commitment to honoring her memory. "I painted what I saw," Mia replied simply. Across the room, Alex was deep in conversation with a potential investor for the new environmental foundation he had established in Elise's name. Part of Reed Enterprises' transformation included dedicating significant resources to undoing the damage its previous practices had caused. As if sensing her gaze, he looked up, meeting her eyes across the crowded gallery. His smile, warm and genuine, still had the power to make her heart skip. "You know, when I first met you, I thought you were someone else," he said later that night as they walked hand in hand along the moonlit path in Central Park. "But now I can't imagine wanting you to be anyone but exactly who you are." Mia squeezed his hand, thinking of the strange twist of fate that had brought them together on that rainy platform. One mistaken hug, born of a simple stumble, had set in motion events that uncovered crimes, brought justice, and ultimately, against all odds, led to love. "Sometimes the greatest journeys begin with a single misstep," she said, leaning into his embrace as they paused beneath the gentle glow of a park lamp. Above them, the clouds parted, revealing a canopy of stars, constant, yet ever-changing, like the truth they had fought to uncover and the future they now faced together. Two people from different worlds, united by circumstance, transformed by shared purpose, and now bound by something neither had expected to find. A second chance at love, built not on illusion or deception, but on the solid foundation of who they truly were. As Alex drew her closer, Mia reflected that perhaps this had been the ultimate masterpiece all along, not any painting she could create, but the authentic life they were now free to build together, one brushstroke at a time. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time, just click on the screen.